Hello and welcome to this video showing the highlights of my 2006 trip across America. Now, over the course of 5 weeks I covered quite a fair bit of America, concentrating mostly in the southwest, Florida and some of the northeast as well. So as you can see on the map here, starting off, flew into Los Angeles and across to Phoenix to meet my sort of online girlfriend at the time, Tiffany, and spent a couple of the weekend with her. And then I flew up to Reno, and then caught up with my friend Russ Smith for a bit of a road trip to Lake Tahoe, the ghost town of Bodie, and Yosemite National Park before we headed off up to San Francisco. Then I flew across to Chicago, and then drove down to Cincinnati and visited the UCG home office. Then drove all the way across to New York via Washington, and then I drove all the way across Pennsylvania to meet a friend of mine in Eastern Ohio, and then flew down to Florida from Cleveland, and starting in Orlando went to NASA at Cape Canaveral, and then drove all the way up to the Feast of Tabernacles site that we had at Panama City Beach, and before heading back to Orlando to catch my flight across to Vegas, and then down to Flagstaff to catch up with Tiffany for the back half of the feast, and then I flew back across to San Francisco and finished the trip driving down the California coastline along Highway 1. And on the way home also stopped. I had a bit of a stopover in Auckland. Welcome to beautiful downtown Phoenix. Well, this is actually out of Phoenix. This is Frontier Town. Where is that? Say hi, Tiff. Some bulls over there.
He's not so happy.
Say hi, Scotty.
Say hello.
Isn't she beautiful?
I'm not so ghost town.
This is Frontier. Well, this is Frontier Town and Cave Creek. It's a little western kind of a town in the outskirts of Phoenix. Nice pub we just went into. Check these out. Look at that. It's a real rattlesnake.
Well, I could take you hiking. You could bring a camcorder and we could find some wildlife.
Not if it's like this.
Just like this. The ones that are in glass casing.
That's scary. Look at it compared to my hand.
Oh, how cute. Look at this back there.
I hate spiders.
Yeah, that's a...
Now, as I often like to say, I'm scared of all those things that start with S. Snakes, spiders, scorpions, supermodels. Now, on the Sunday, Tiff took me up to Tonto National Park a couple of hours, well, an hour and a half north of Phoenix. Phoenix itself is very dry, semi-arid, but the area north, as we're looking at here, is quite lovely and nicely forested. Quite a contrast to Phoenix itself. Oh, Scotty, go.
You should be looking at all of this over here.
Oh,
You ready?
plenty of time for that.
Oh, you're still eating.
This is very steep, isn't it?
We have to walk back up.
Oh, joy. This is a waterfall creek. Look at that. It's so much like on that Facial Lesson series, and he talks about Engedi, where David fled the oasis on the western side of the Dead Sea, and you'll see these beautiful waterfalls. Look at this awesome view of Tonto Bridge. And the trail down there to the valley. Beautiful forest, mountains around here. There's the waterfall.
He's gonna be crying.
And where's the spring? It's up this way, isn't it?
Well, it starts up over up on the top of the mountain and then
Okay.
travels through here on top and then over the travertine bridge,
Okay.
which is the largest travertine bridge in the whole world.
Yep.
You have to
That's
mention
where
the
the spring
wild berries.
flows.
That makes it.
And under our feet here, you can see down the waterfall all the way down to the bottom. Sweet. There's under your feet. And there's the cliff. Welcome to the Bible Museum here in Phoenix. I've been browsing around here for the last hour or so. Some of the most ancient ones, John Wycliffe's New Testament. Here's the Great Bible. Wow. This is one of the main predecessors of the King James. And over here we have an exact facsimile of the very first King James Bible. And look at all this. Great title page. Monthly readings, daily readings I should say.
Good information, so whenever I saw that,
Table and calendar.
I don't know.
So something to do with holidays. So Saints' days. And the books of the Bible. You notice that the Apocrypha is actually included in the 1611 version. And we're told that the Apocrypha was actually removed from Protestant Bibles only as late as the 1880s. Now, there's some great genealogies in here.
Understanding about what a particular party might
And you get into the books themselves. And the Gutenberg Bible. Don has been very helpful. Tells some many fascinating stories. This is the vault with many.
So there's how many translations in here?
There's actually 38. But they're not everyone is listed. Look. Common text, King James, that's the bold type.
Okay.
And then they take the Old Testament, they compare these 25 English translations, which include the Septuagint, include a Torah, okay? And wherever there's a difference or where there's illumination by another translation, then they put it in. And they tell you that this translation came from the Septuagint. That's what that little guide
cool.
is for.
Oh, okay, these here.
See?
Okay.
And then they went and used 25 translations to do the New Testament. Now we know there's no New Testament Septuagint or New Testament Torah. So 13 of these are the same, 12 are different.
I see.
And when you put the King James in there, you have a total of 38 different translations used to make up this Bible.
So would you, in your opinion, would you say that the 1611 version is the most reliable translation?
I'm looking for something. This is my Bible.
Okay. That looks well used.
There's a few notes.
Which one is that?
When it's corrected, it's the most reliable.
Okay, I have one like that too. Which one is that?
This is King James.
That was King James?
Yeah.
Now is that the
It's the King James, not the 1611.
Okay.
It's really a revision done in 1762, which is what everybody gets today.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. It's not the new King James.
Okay.
But you know that's look. I think it's when you say most reliable, I believe it's the most honest
Okay.
translation.
Okay. So the King James. What do you think of the new King James version?
I don't read it,
Okay.
so I have no opinion.
Okay, that's good. That's fair enough. I have that one, but I don't know.
The reason we carry this
This is the ultimate.
is well,
ultimate
it's
parallel
a
Bible.
virtual it's a virtual Bible
What's that?
library.
So after spending the weekend with Tiffany there in Phoenix, I headed up to Reno for a bit of a road trip with my good friend Russ Smith from Reno through to San Francisco via Lake Tahoe and Bodie and Yosemite National Park. View of Lake Tahoe from the northeast. That golf course.
Here we are in the gorgeous, epic beauty of Sand Harbor, Lake Tahoe, mates. And I have my mate here, Roger from Down Under. He's got a bit of funny accent, but we love him here in the States anyway. Cheers to all me mates down under.
How good is that view? Isn't that sweet?
It's gorgeous here.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Got epic weather.
Couldn't ask for a more beautiful day and a more beautiful view. Well, except for a certain someone, but that's for another time. On three. 1, 2, 3, go.
Cheers, mates. This is how we dive up yonder.
How's the water, mate? Cold?
What's that?
Cold? Now, my photo camera at the time had a bit of a lag to it, but I factored that in and absolutely timed it to perfection when I took this photo of Russ diving in, touching the water with his fingers at the moment I took the shot. Now, Lake Tahoe itself is about 6,000 feet high in elevation in the Sierra Nevada mountains, so the water is pretty cold, and I can attest to it having jumped into the water myself. Didn't stay in for very long. I got out pretty quickly thereafter. Now, Lake Tahoe itself is an absolutely gorgeous spot. Beautiful crystal clear water, and really probably one of my very favourite spots, if not my very favourite spot in the western side of America. And this is near Sand Harbor on the northeastern side of Lake Tahoe. Welcome to Emerald Bay, here on the southwest corner of beautiful Lake Tahoe.
Surrounded by majestic California mountains.
Are we actually in California or Nevada?
We're in California.
We are in California. Pretty close to the state line.
Here, get me in there. Hi, everybody, down under. Whiskey.
Sure.
The birdies.
Now we're we're on the east side of the beautiful Sierra Nevada mountains, and we are at just outside of Bridgeport, a little town, enjoying the hot springs for our morning bath. And here am I enjoying my morning bath in the beautiful hot springs here at Bridgeport. And just over there is the little town of Bridgeport where we stayed overnight. And it's one of the hot springs here. And what was the name of this place? What was the name of the springs?
Bridgeport Springs.
Bridgeport? Okay.
Notice this natural fountain created by the Almighty with some vibrant green trickling down, the calcium deposits. You have some orange colors shooting out from the rocks as well. You have salt deposits trickling off to the side like snow. It looks like snow, but it's not, mates. This is absolutely gorgeous. The water is about a nice, tranquil 105 degrees Fahrenheit. What's that in Celsius, mate?
Oh, about 40. Yeah, welcome to the ghost town of Bodie. Seeing here the remains of a town that was about 20 times as many buildings as you see here during its heyday back in the 1880s when they mined for gold. And we're looking down the main street of Bodie. The church here on the left hand side.
Or shot in this place, huh?
Yeah, apparently there was a shooting a day back in the heydays.
Skis.
You can see all the chips still on the table. Wow. Can imagine a few pub brawls back then. Look at this gorgeous view of the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains. I think that's Mono Lake in the background there. I just love the little patches of snow on the mountains. The road that goes up to Bodie. As you can see by the sign, we're up very high in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Current elevation 9,500 feet. We're almost at the top of the pass from the eastern Sierra Nevada area to the west of the mountains, where we will go to Yosemite National Park. This is Ellery Lake. Gorgeous. Emerald colour. Some people fishing. Boy, that was quite a climb up here. Great high altitude workout. And here's Russ in a barrel wave of ice.
When we get to El Cap, boy, we will be able to, they'll look like ants climbing it.
Yeah, look at them go. 7 times zoom.
It's a huge slab of granite.
Wow. Look at them go.
They're lead climbing it. Where one guy leads with a rope, the other guy belays. They take turn belaying each other.
Yep. Fantastic. Looking back towards Tahoe Lake. This view of this incredible granite valley. As we swing around, you'll see the majestic half dome. And welcome to Yosemite Valley. Look at that magnificent view. El Capitan on the left hand side and Half Dome in the distance on the right. Now we're at Glacier Point, the very south side of the incredibly deep Yosemite Valley. Let's see just how deep it is. It's just about petrified me when I got here. It is 5 miles deep. I mean 1 mile deep, 5,000 feet. That just freaked me out when I got here. It was that unfortunately there's basically a trickle over there. There's 2 great waterfalls in the middle of the shot usually. But those are pretty much running dry. Beautiful creek down the bottom there, river down the bottom. There's Half Dome over there.
And from the point up there, it's hard to see. We'd have to kind of go down the trail the other way. There's actually a little nose, like a diving board, that sticks out.
Yep.
And I've actually climbed up the backside of that thing and got out to the end of the diving board, just look at the edge.
Diving board.
It's like a mile to the valley floor.
You make it sound like a suicide place.
But from the valley floor, the hike, it's 5,500 vertical feet up the backside and 8.1 miles. Usually it takes about 3 or 4 hours. You have to hike up all the way around the right side up those 2 falls, Nevada Falls and Vernal Falls, and it goes around the back. It's mostly a huge hike, a lot of like step climbing too. There's a lot of steps in those regions. Then you come up the backside and then there are these cables, like about 200 meters, kind of an arch you got to climb with cables.
Yep.
And they also have horizontally mounted wood 2x4s, so you can actually kind of go up like a ladder up the backside. So it's pretty nice. A lot of rock climbers, the hardcore ones, will climb up the face though.
Oh. Yeah, you wouldn't want to fall from there.
It's like you're being on the moon when you get to the top there, because you're up there and it's just everything is pretty much waste. And it's like a huge football. It's bigger than any football or rugby field up at the top there.
That's right.
It's huge.
It's a huge amount of granite in this whole valley. That's amazing.
And the panoramic 360 view once you're at the top there is breathtaking. It's absolutely worth the hike. It takes a good 8 hours, 8 to 10 hours hiking up and down, enjoying all the views and the sceneries.
And here's Russ clowning around again, looking like he's about to fall off the cliff, with the half moon in the background. And we actually saw a coyote on our way back down from Glacier Point.
As
far as you go, 64 times.
And then pull a zoom out. Are you recording this?
Yes.
Yeah. And pull the zoom out to get the view of the whole mountain. Let's go ahead and back out. You know how to back out?
She is El Capitan.
Wow.
In Yosemite National Park.
Wow.
So after we finally got to San Francisco, I flew all the way across to Chicago and picked up a car. Now I was planning on staying overnight at a friend's place, but things didn't quite work out so well there because I could not for the life of me find his place. This is the days before I ever had a GPS, and so I ended up sleeping in the car for the night, which was not a bright idea in hindsight, as I'll tell you about a little bit later. Welcome to Chicago. And we're driving along Lakeside Drive here, along the shores of Lake Michigan. Beautiful downtown Chicago. This is quite a glorious drive. quite reminiscent of some of the roads around the Swan River in Perth. And looking at beautiful downtown Chicago. And that was about all I got to see of Chicago by daytime, as I had to make my way down to Cincinnati. And having had a pretty rough night's sleep in the car, that did not help, because I was pretty sleepy on the road. And when I started passing through Indianapolis, went around the ring road of Indianapolis, and I had a micro sleep. And when I woke up from the micro sleep, I found myself on a 45-degree embankment, wrestling to get control of the car, and somehow managed to brake the car without rolling the car down the hill. And to be honest, I was very shaken up after that, so I was very grateful to God to be able to survive that little ordeal. We've arrived in Cincinnati at the moment. I'm just making my way to church. I stayed at the Red Rock Inn to the north of the city, and we're heading east towards Milford, where the office is. What we're looking at now is the little, village of Montgomery. See lots of American flags flying. It's very, almost it has a colonial America look about it. It's very nice. And we're making our way towards the home office here in Cincinnati. And we're driving now on Shawnee River Run Road, which is almost like a millionaire's kind of a road. And while I was in Cincinnati, I did a tour of the United Church of God's home office.
To make a poor choice. Sometimes of ourselves we are tempted, but it's important, which leads to eventual being exalted by God. God holds us responsible as free moral agents to choose meekness and humility and to reject pride. And with the help that He makes available, that is not impossible. That's not a pipe dream. God gives grace. Therefore, He says God resists the proud, but He gives grace to the humble. Therefore, submit to God.
And Mike Bennett was kind enough to give me a tour of the office, and here he is with Tom Kirkpatrick. So beginning our tour of the home office. Far away.
Where we met in there was the ABC.
Yep, and also the church room as well. Yep.
This is our boom camera. It's operated by two people.
Yep.
To
Get up nice and close.
Shots, views from above, all kinds of things.
Yeah, very good. Now, what struck me the most about this Beyond Today TV set at this particular time was just how small this whole room was.
So it's all in one hallway, but it kind of it curves around. Some people think they get lost. It's really just one hallway.
Right.
Next we have information systems, computer area.
Oh, yes, area.
So they program all the we get all the people. Richard Kennebec, Paul Osselkoff, and Chris Stewart, just ABC graduate this last year.
Yep.
Hired in here.
That's right.
Dave Johnson's first.
What?
He teaches.
Okay.
He teaches at ABC, and then the other half of his
David
time.
Johnson? The Sex and the World Tomorrow presenter. Excellent. I remember that sermon. Very nice. Looking down on the outside. It's actually, the office is based in a technology park on the eastern outskirts of Cincinnati.
The financial area is the Tom Kirkpatrick's office.
Tom is our speaker for today. Books I'm not interested in.
Anything about taxes, that's not too
That's right.
exciting.
Very good.
Here's the president's office.
Clyde Collin. Where is Mr. Collin at the moment?
I do not know. He may have already be on his way to the feast. He's heading for Colorado. He may have just had a speaking assignment this week.
Oh, that is nice. That is a painting, isn't it?
I believe so.
Wow. That's fantastic. I'll try.
This boomerangs are everywhere.
Yes, well, he did visit us not too long ago.
Ocean manager.
That's right. Where is Peter at the moment?
He is in Australia.
Oh, already?
He left on
then
Tuesday.
down our way for the feast, is he?
Yes.
Oh.
Got to make a couple trips this year. So.
He did. He wasn't that long ago. He was down taping us for the feast film. Right. Speaking of which, your office, Mike. Okay. So, what is your job here, Mike?
I mainly work on United News.
Okay.
I do layout for the World News and Prophecy.
Right.
Some of the other publications. So mainly it's.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yep. Okay, so beer. Do we actually? We should put something out like that.
We talked about it. In fact, I think
I saw. You know, I did actually send a question about something like that because on one of our feast films there was kind of like a mock one.
Mm-hmm.
You see pages of. But was there ever a hard copy that was ever done?
No, we didn't do a hard copy that year. I think somebody in Australia this year that sent me this. I'm trying to remember who it
might have been
was.
Craig.
Yeah, probably Craig.
Probably Craig.
Which was used a lot more in the past before we had the new studio.
Yep.
But do a lot of editing here, sermon tapes, piece film, some of it. We're changing equipment to make it compatible with what we got for the Beyond Today program.
Okay.
Or before we had the Beyond Today program.
Yep.
So Gary Petty would come up from Texas.
That's right. Yep.
And they would record right here in this studio. Still used for a lot of other functions.
Yep.
Most of which I don't know.
Okay.
But I know tape duplication.
Yeah, this is the main lobby. Library.
Like a very specialized library in theological materials.
That's for sure. And here's a couple more views of the library. Some of the graduates.
Right around 2004, we finally could print in color.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The Council of Elders is there a meeting?
Okay.
No. I wanted to ask how you like that camera.
That's great. Are you Eric?
Yeah.
Yes.
Eric?
I'm Laura.
Nice to meet you, Laura. Just over Saturday night dinner with the Ungaloo family. Was it? Is it Ungaloo? Did I get that right? Ungaloo? Yeah. Okay. And just to introduce everyone, it's Mike, who's not actually part of the family, as you can tell. And Jeremy down there. Jerry. And Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca.
And Bernard. And
I'm Linda.
Linda.
Hey, Ken, Ruth.
We're having a great time here tonight. Now, I then started driving from Cincinnati all the way across to the East Coast, and just looking at some photos now of the journey to New York, and also then the long drive back across the entire state of Pennsylvania to the where I caught up with a friend of mine in eastern Ohio, before then flying down to Florida. Now, when I finally arrived on the East Coast, I managed to find an internet cafe and logged on to be greeted by the wonderful news that the Brisbane Broncos had won the NRL Premiership. That was so exciting. And then immediately after, I opened up my email to find out that Tiffany had broken off our relationship entirely, and boy, was that a classic case of mixed emotions. I felt miserable after that for a little while. So I did put a bit of a dampener on the rest of the trip, but made the most of it. And so now we then headed on up to New York. Looking at the famous Brooklyn Bridge. Go for a drive on it a little bit later. Alright, we're currently on Wall Street at the moment. If we zoom out, you just see just how narrow a street this is. Very narrow. And behind us here is the Federal National Museum or something like that. And you can see the statue of George Washington, and he was on this site here. He took the oath to become America's first president. And if we go across to the corner of Wall Street and Broad Street, we're looking at the New York Stock Exchange.
They have that church in the background.
Welcome to New York. Just over there on the right hand side, just be able to see the Statue of Liberty we're hoping to get to this afternoon. We're just going down the west side of Manhattan Island. Just give you a bit of a taste of what New York traffic looks like. The roads here are absolutely terrible because they're just non-stop traffic and pedestrians run out in front of you. Even cyclists running down the wrong side of the road. And we're at the south end of Lower Manhattan. I believe this place is called Battery Park, where there's walkways, cycleways are along the river. That's the river here. And looking out towards the Statue of Liberty. See how good the zoom is. Not bad. And like I said, there's all sorts of walkways, bikeways up along the river here. Looking at Ground Zero now, side of the Twin Towers. Very sobering to see this great big hole in the ground. Yeah, once two mighty towers stood 110 stories high. And we're looking at one of the memorials to people who lost their lives, particularly in this case the firemen. You can see down below just all the firemen who lost their lives. Dedicated to those who fell, to those who carry on. It's certainly very sobering to be here. I've got a bit of a lump in my throat looking at all this after everything I saw on TV. I only got to see the towers once myself from the Empire State Building from afar back in '94. To give you a bit of an idea of what they're planning on building here, there'll be a memorial, as you can see there on the top left, and this great big skyscraper with this huge pinnacle at the top. And we're at South Street Seaport, Pier 17, and this fabulous tall ship, Peking. We're now going across the Brooklyn Bridge, rather slowly on my dad. It's a bit of a crawl at the moment. And over on our right hand side is the Manhattan Bridge, which I crossed before. And my next stop was going up to the top of the Empire State Building. And the view at the top is absolutely spectacular. And we're now up the Empire State Building at night time. And in front of us now is the glorious view of Lower Manhattan from the 80th story here, well 86 I should say. In front of us is the Chrysler Building and actually I can't remember the other one. These are the two that competed for the prize of the tallest building in New York back in the I think late 20s or early 30s. And the one on the left was finished first. Well, they thought they actually finished it second, but the guys in the Chrysler Tower on the right hand put the spire through the top there just as a bit of a last minute sort of a thing and claimed the prize. That mantle then passed on to this building, the Empire State Building in 1934. And ironically, the tallest building in New York, it has now become is now back to being New York's tallest building after the events of 9/11. And we're looking down towards the Brooklyn Bridge on the right hand side there, and the Manhattan Bridge on the left. After New York, I then drove all the way across Pennsylvania and caught up with a friend of mine in eastern Ohio, and then flew down to Orlando. And after getting into Orlando, my first point of interest that I drove to was Cape Canaveral to go and visit NASA.
When I was a kid, I used to dream about flying through space. Every week on TV, I'd watch my heroes as they jumped into their rocket ships and took to the stars. And I wanted to be like them. They had courage, imagination, and no problem ever stood in their way for long. You know, in the end, when we actually did send men into space, it turned out that those were exactly the qualities it took.
I'm John Hudson. This is Pad 39 at the Kennedy Space Center. I was a launch controller here when from this very spot, man took off to fly to the moon. It was a journey that began 12 years before that rocket ever left the ground. And it started on the other side of the world.
Back then, we were one of two superpowers that always seemed to be on the edge of a terrible war. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched the first ever man-made satellite into Earth orbit. They called it Sputnik, which means traveling companion. And in a world where peace hung in a delicate balance, it seemed to create a dangerous advantage. Every ham radio operator in America could hear it beeping. People were afraid. Were the Soviets looking down on us, watching us? If they could make a satellite pass over our cities, could they do the same with a bomb? Our own space program kicked into high gear, and less than 2 months later, we were ready to launch our own satellite. It was being called the space race, and we were running a distant second. In 1961, we fell even further behind. Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man into space, circling the world in just 89 minutes. We had our own astronauts, and they were eager and ready to take the big ride. But our manned space program couldn't seem to get off the ground. We stuck with it, and on May 5th, 1961, things finally started going right. Astronaut Alan Shepard took his ship Freedom 7 6.5 miles into space. America had its first space hero. Just a few days later, our space program received a new challenge. But this one did not come from the Soviet Union. It came from our young president. In one inspiring moment, he changed the mission from one based in fear of the present to one of hope for the future.
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We hadn't been more than 16 minutes into space, and now we were going to the moon. We would have to design a rocket the size of a 36-story office building, put it together with the precision of a microscope, and accelerate it to the speed of a bullet. Then we would have to guide it to a moving target 250,000 miles away. Many people thought it was an impossible dream, but 400,000 of us set about making that dream a reality. It would be the longest, most hazardous voyage that any man had dared to attempt. But step by step, mission by mission, we orbited the Earth, perfecting the skills and technologies we would need on this incredible journey. Our astronauts practiced maneuvering, docking, and the 1,000 other tasks that would comprise the moon mission. We created new alloys, lighter and stronger than anything seen before. communication system that would be reliable over the vast distances. And behind it all, we tried to perfect the rocket that would be powerful enough to punch out of Earth orbit and take us to the moon. One day, however, the dream of flying to the moon almost slipped away. It was January 27th, 1967. Astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, and Roger Chaffee were on board Apollo 1 for a close-out test, a full-scale dress rehearsal for the actual launch. Suddenly it happened. There was a fire in the capsule. 3 men whose lives had been in our hands were lost.
Surely the opening vistas of space promise high costs and hardships, as well as high reward. But this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
After Apollo 1, some thought we'd failed, and that the moon was out of our reach. But we owed it to those men to learn from their sacrifice and to carry on. We started taking the Apollo vehicle apart, piece by piece. Was the design flawed? Had safety been compromised? Tough questions. And we spent 1.5 years redesigning the spacecraft so that no astronaut's life would ever be at risk because we overlooked something, or because we could have done something better. A moon rocket is 91% high explosive, and it goes into the most unforgiving, hazardous environment there is. We could never make it risk-free, and the men who flew them knew that. We didn't send men into space again until Apollo 7 orbited the Earth, testing some of the new design. When everything worked perfectly, the decision was made. The next mission would travel to the moon. It was mankind's destiny to leave the shores of our planet behind and strike out across the vast ocean of space. In the great span of our history, now was the time that we could. Now was the time that we would. We stood on the eve of the longest, most dangerous journey that any man had ever undertaken. And it would be taken by Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders, the crew of Apollo 8. Through those doors, you'll find the firing room, launch control, just as it was on December 21st, 1968.
I'll see you out on the phone.
Launch control for the Apollo missions. This is not a mock-up. These are the very consoles we sat at when men first took off to fly to the moon. The tragedy of Apollo 1 had put us 1.5 years behind. We were making up for it in one big leap, and we were doing it with a rocket that no man had ever flown before. It was a few days before Christmas 1968 when Apollo 8 sat on the pad. She was the first of a new kind, a moon rocket. This was the Phoenix, risen from the ashes of Apollo 1. The first Apollo crew did not die in vain. This was to be their testament. "36 stories high, she had been fully fueled throughout the night. The liquid oxygen in her tanks caused ice to form on the outside of the craft. The extreme temperature differences between the air and the sub-zero fuel caused the metal skin of the rocket to expand and contract. Everyone who was on the pad agreed. It was as though the rocket was alive, breathing, straining at the leash. Earlier in the morning, astronauts Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders had made their final preparations before taking that long ride out to the waiting spacecraft. The minimum safe distance from Saturn V at liftoff was 3 miles. The reason was simple. When fully fueled, the rocket contained the explosive power of an atomic bomb. As the clock counted down, the astronauts and all of us in launch control went through the pre-flight checks, our hands on the controls of the most powerful, most complex machine ever built. It had over 2 million separate systems, and to bring these men back alive, everything had to work perfectly. Each individual system had been tested, but what we didn't know was how they would perform when all 2 million began to work together. That moment would come when the countdown clock reached 0. If a maneuvering thruster failed, if communications broke down, if navigation was off by 1 degree, if any piece of the miles of wiring, circuits, relays, or valves was defective, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders would pay with their lives. As they sat, waiting for launch on that chill December morning, these 3 astronauts were back to what they had always been, test pilots. You are now in the final minutes before the launch of Apollo 8, right here where it actually happened.
Status board indicates that all aspects are ready. Instrument motors ready, spacecraft ready, non-obstructive emergency detection system at ready, also. First stage preparations are completed.
All systems remain okay.
20 seconds on this space rest. Roll up this time.
Apollo 8 successfully orbited the moon, and the astronauts returned safely to the Earth. I know. I'm Jim Lovell, and I was one of the crew of this spacecraft, Apollo 8. We were the first men to see the surface of the moon from just a few miles away. But it was the hundreds of thousands of men and women who worked in that team, and the millions of people who supported the mission that really made it possible. That way, I guess, we all went to the moon. Now, on the other side of those doors, you'll find an actual Saturn V moon rocket. It's still the most powerful, the most complex machine ever built. And I guess it's the only one that can take you to another planet. I actually got to fly one on a second flight to the moon called Apollo 13.
But that's another story.
Look at that. It's huge. What's amazing about NASA going to the moon at this stage is that it was, as far as computers go, absolutely the dark age. They, I think they had about 4 kilobytes of memory in the computer on the Apollo 11, 4 kilobytes of RAM, which actually overloaded at the time. Ultimate golf buggy, the Moon Rover. On one of the later Apollo missions, I do believe they actually took a golf club and a ball and had a swing of golf on the moon. They also dropped a leaf, I mean not a leaf, a feather, and some sort of iron object onto the ground at the same. Released their hands at the same time. And both the feather and the iron ball hit the ground of the moon at the same time, and thus proving Galileo's theory of, when it comes to gravity, that all objects fall towards the Earth at the same pace. Considering a feather, try and do that on Earth, a feather will experience wind resistance, but with no wind resistance on the moon, obviously it's going to go straight down, just like any other object. This O-ring that sits between between two of the stages. You'll often see that in some of the moon documentaries, where it's you see it falling away into space. And looking towards the nose cone, and down here is the command module. And we're looking at the lunar module, the part that actually descends onto the moon. The command module, what we saw over there before, is what circled the moon, broke off from it. And inside this building is where we were with the Saturn V rocket. Now we're on some bit of a platform here. We're looking directly across to where the NASA space shuttle takes off, over in the far reaches of the Cape. I just would so love to be here when the space shuttle takes off. It'd be awesome.
Over the next decade,
crawlers over there.
NASA plans to continue its robotic exploration of Mars,
and the vehicle
searching for
assembly building,
and developing the technology that will be needed for longer.
From here, the crawler goes out to the launch pads right out there. And amongst the objects of interest here at the Kennedy Space Center, you can see a space shuttle. Not sure if this is a replica or the real thing. And we're looking now at a couple of the rockets that were used in by the Gemini program. Now, the early launches used a Redstone rocket, which you can see on the right hand side there, a much smaller one, and then they moved up to the Atlas rocket on the left hand side, which was capable of flying up 2 men. And this one is the Gemini command module. For 2 men. Now, Jim Lovell, who we just saw before talking about Apollo 8, who was also on Apollo 13, was on a previous mission with Frank Borman, Gemini 7, and this is one of the Gemini spacecraft. Now, they spent 2 whole weeks cooped up in there with nowhere to go, having to hold all their urine and sitting next to each other without a shower for 2 weeks. So it would have smelled quite a bit afterwards. But that would have been quite the adventure. After touring around NASA, I then went up to Gainesville in Central Florida to catch up with my friends Johnny Godosky and Adam Stewart for a bit of a scholars meeting. We have a common interest in Velikovsky research, so that's ancient catastrophism and also ancient revised chronology. And it was a good evening that we had. And then it was off to Panama City Beach for our annual Feast of Tabernacles, where I spent about, I think, the first 3 days. Welcome to Panama City Beach, where I'm starting the feast at here in beautiful Florida. Now we're staying at the Edgewater Resort, up here on the 10th floor of the Tower 1. And it's a beautiful sunny Sabbath. Look at the gorgeous blue-green water out there. It's just a shame they have no breakers out there, being here on the Gulf Coast. So beautiful and blue. And the pool below us. And this is the other side of the view of Edgewater Resort from our room, looking across the main esplanade, and over there in where you see all the golf villas. The hall is located just over there. Panama City Beach, looking back towards Panama City. Lots of condos along the river, the coast I should say. Yeah, this is a...
Last year in Maui I was on a lower level. In Honolulu I had a high level hotel room right overlooking Waikiki Beach. Really pretty as well.
Yeah, the sand is very white, I've noticed. Beaches here too, which is great.
Yeah, pretty sand.
And here's the main hall for church, where there was about 1,300 people there. A few of the singles there, including my friends Gene Dunlop and Mark Kozlowski, a few others, and some more singles there. Now, I struck up a good friendship with Deacon and Deaconess Anna and Manus Samos from the Church of God Ministries International, who contacted me through my website, who they were quite impressed with. And so we built up a good friendship, and while I was in Florida, decided to go visit them at their particular feast site, which was just down the road from Panama City Beach at Fort Walton. And this is their hall at their feast site at Fort Walton Beach. And I did have the chance to do a sermon out there, so I quite enjoyed my day there. And we're looking now near Fort Walton Beach. Now this whole strip from Panama City Beach in the far distance over there, which is it's about 60 miles away, to down here is known as the Emerald Coast. If you look at that beautiful water out there, I understand why it's called the Emerald Coast. Look how beautiful and white the sand is here. Magnificent. And I think this is Santa Rosa Beach that crosses from Destin to Fort Walton. A couple of guys over there going jet skiing. Just about to. Back out towards the sea. Now, after my first 3 days there in Florida, I then drove all the way back to Orlando and flew over to Las Vegas, and then on to Flagstaff for the back half of the feast. But before we have a look at Vegas, I'm going to show you some highlights now from the trip I had the following year in 2007 to Florida, where I also kept the feast, this time all the way through at Panama City Beach. I moved over to England in 2007 and thought PCB would be a nice place to go again, and did a little bit of a tour around Florida. So I'm just going to show you some highlights of that now. Now, on my 2007 trip to Florida, the first place they went to was St. Augustine on the northeastern coast of Florida. Now, we're looking here at a statue of Joan Ponce de Leon from Spain, who was the first European to set foot on Florida soil, and he did so here on this spot in 1513, here at St. Augustine. Now, St. Augustine was settled by the Spanish in 1565 and has been a continuous place of European settlement ever since then. It predates even the English attempts to colonise Jamestown and Roanoke, the other place in Virginia. And we're looking now at a series of photos that I took at St. Augustine. Some of the historic buildings. And we're looking now at the Fort Augustine, I think it's probably called. Some people in costume there. And looking down, this is the main Spanish Quarter, I believe it is. And this is Henry Flagler, I think Flagler University. Henry Flagler was the millionaire who really put Florida on the map and built the famous railway and then rode all the way down to Key West. Now, my next stop after St. Augustine was going down to Daytona Beach, where the sand is so nicely compacted you can actually drive on the beach, which we're doing here. So just a couple of minutes soaking up the sights of driving along Daytona Beach. I like that sign. If you can read this, roll me over. And I then went down to Miami Beach, and this is near the hostel I stayed at, and took some lovely photos at night time of South Miami Beach with all its beautiful Art Deco buildings. Absolutely fantastic. And here's a building that changed colours at night. And then I went all the way down the next day down to Key West and went across the Intercoastal Highway or something like that. Fantastic piece of engineering, that one. And here's a guy who's going to tell you a little bit more
right
about
underneath that pylon is a 500-pound Goliath grouper. Really? It used to be called Jewfish, but politically correct times, they changed the name. But the Coast Guard protects them. If you ever try to go fishing down there, it's like magic. It's like they got some satellite. I don't know how they figure it out, but if you ever park a boat there, within 5 minutes, the Coast Guard's going to be on you. It's like their mascot. Yeah. Well, a little while ago, just a few minutes ago, well, during the what we call the ebb tide, every pelican out here, you don't see any right now, but there must have been 20 of them, and every one of them were splashing the water right there, diving. Yeah. And it's because that grouper was eating. Really? And when he eats, all the byproduct comes up to the surface, and every pelican in Key West was out here diving and eating. Yeah. But he's bigger than you and me put together. Big fish, probably a couple of 100 years old.
What's the story with this really strong current?
Do you know what you're leaning against?
No.
Okay, there's a history behind this. This is the history right here. You are leaning against the history. This Key West was founded by a man named Henry Flagler, who was a billionaire. Yes. Okay? Now, he saw the potential back in the 1920s and 30s. Okay? Yep. He founded Daytona Beach. Yep. Okay? There's called the Flagler County. Flagler College in Augustine. Is he the one who did the only way to get out to Key West at that time, he saw the potential, was by railroad. You are leaning against the original railroad tracks. Really? Okay. Now, this is called Pigeon Key right down here. Yep. This part that you see is the old highway, which used to be the old railroad. Right. right down at the end of here, about 2.5 miles. If you're going to be here, a matter of fact, there's a tourism center right down here behind you. Yeah, they'll take you for a tour down there, but that's where the World War I veterans lived. They're the ones who built the highway, right? Well, in, I think it was 1934, a hurricane came through, a big one. Well, it killed every one of them because they couldn't get the guys off the keys. And Henry Flagler, the billionaire, almost committed suicide over that because he was responsible. He felt so horrible. But these are the original rails that were that railroad. Okay. And then they built this road, and this lasted for a little while, but you see how narrow it is, right? It's very hard to get 2 cars down it. It used to be that there was the signs out here, and they said, pull in your side mirrors, because 2 cars would smash their side mirrors. But this was the original highway, and then they finally, as time went by, built that one.
So what's the diving and the snorkeling like around here?
Oh, it's fantastic. See, I was sponge diving just a minute ago. That's why I was out there, but I just got washed away.
Where's some of the best places to go snorkeling around here?
Very close, or
just the Keys in general.
Okay, well I can tell you some very close places, and I can tell you the best places. Key West, the best. Really? That's 48 miles. They go doing 60 miles an hour, about a half an hour drive. But right up the road, if you see how these the island jets are over here? There's a boat launch over here that you can just simply walk ankle deep water down into. And you see how, well, it's stirred up here because of the current, but there's no current over there. Right. Crystal clear is like looking for glass.
Just over here?
Yeah, 100 foot. I got my dive stuff in my van.
Is that the best sort of, as far as just wading in from the beach?
Well,
snorkeling?
No, but for somebody who's not from here and don't have a boat, yes. But no, it's very good. I got in right over there, okay? Now, for me to do that, I got to go over that wall, and I have to jump into water about this deep. Most people don't want to go through that, okay?
So where's the best, like, colorful coral around here for snorkeling?
You are in the most incredible. Actually, there's a place called John Penningham National Park. You know where it's at? It's all underwater. And it's got the Christ of the Abyss. It's been down. You've heard of it?
Heard of it, yes.
It's John Pennington Camp. It's up in Key Largo. Which you may have passed if you came down this way. But that is Diver's Paradise, and it's got the Christ of the Abyss down there, and the water is just, like I said, 100 foot. You can't even tell you're looking through water. It's just like looking through air. Same thing. Key West is good too. Okay. See, you got to understand, this is what they call the Straits of Florida. This is where all the shipwrecks are. The Etosha. Matter of fact, there's an article in the paper right now. There's a guy trying to sell an emerald from the Etosha, $87,000 for one emerald.
Wow.
But that's from the Etosha, so. But yeah, if you want to just wade in really close, right over there, you can go. You actually have to go up. There's a state patrol station up there. Okay, when you see all these state patrol troopers, the very next road, you take a left. Looks like you're not going anywhere, but you're going to dead end. Oh, not if you like seafood now. It's called the Keys Fisheries. They have a sign, billboard, bigger than I can do. They've made 87,000 lobster ribbons. But and you can go there and see tarpon this big, wider than I can spread my arms. They just sit there, and it's a lobster food boat.
Now, just after I got all the way down to Key West, the heavens opened up and it just bucketed down in this torrential downpour and caused this flash flood that you can see right here. And then I went back up to Miami that night, and it was a pretty miserable day to be driving around Miami the next day, as you can tell here. But started to clear up by the time I drove all the way up to West Palm Beach, and then it was off to Panama City for the Feast of Tabernacles. Now here's some pictures of some of the beautiful beaches and the views here. The pool at Edgewater Beach Resort, which has beautiful sunsets. And another one of the beautiful sunset. And look at this for a classic golden sunset over the water. And here's a photo of a few of us singles getting together for dinner there. Now that feast site at Panama City Beach, there would have been about 1,300 people there in attendance, but would you believe that the number of singles between the ages of 25 and 50 were so small? I mean, you could count the number of singles in that age bracket on two hands. And having lunch with a family here at the feast, and some of the young singles at the site, and catching up with my mate Mark and a few of his friends. It's quite extraordinary, this particular feast. I probably went out to dinner with people on 9 separate occasions, not all with church members, one with a work colleague and her family before the feast, and my a couple of mates, Johnny and Adam, after the feast. And so I went out on about 9 different occasions, and only once did I have to pay for myself. Everyone else was just being so generous that particular time that I was over there. So I really developed a very healthy appreciation for the generosity of Americans. And I also caught up with my good friends Adam and Johnny for another Scholars get-together at this Irish pub here, and here we are reposing beneath the moose. And it really looks like I've had too much sun, as you can see from that photo. And now we go back to 2006 and pick up the rest of the tour, starting in Las Vegas, midway through the Feast of Tabernacles.
Welcome to Las Vegas. I'm on Paradise Road, which runs parallel to the strip, the main strip, which is to the left and parallel with this road here. And I'm just about to go visit Star Trek The Experience. See Barry Manilow also appears here. This place has got so many big stars. So Celine Dion, Liza Minnelli, a whole stack of them. Welcome to Star Trek The Experience. So we're going in and box outfit from Star Trek 4. What was that? Oh, there's that bottle from the beginning of champagne bottle from the beginning of Star Trek Generations. Clean on data chip. Easy weapon. It's one of Whoopi's enormous hats. Faces. Here is the photon torpedo. And after you've finished checking out all the exhibits at the Experience, you can have yourself a Romulan ale at Quark's Bar. And here I am in the captain's chair,
Hey, it might not be Captain Kirk's chair, but it's Captain Picard's chair. But hey, it's the Enterprise. Warp Factor 9. Engage. Moving across to the Venetian. And you can see the Rialto Bridge over there. San Marco's Tower. Just make out the flames. Whoa, look at that. I am in the wrong spot. I need to be around here. Whoa. Cool. Woo. Welcome to the Venetian. Strip's quite wild at night. Packed with people. This is huge, this Venetian. It's amazing. This has been built since I was here last. Rialto Bridge, San Marco's Cathedral. And looking back towards the Mirage. Treasure Island. Yeah, close to Venetian. And we're currently at Treasure Island. Now towards Bellies and Paris. Over in the distance there are the towers of New York, and the Merlins behind those. It's about 11 o'clock at night, so it's pretty busy here, even this late. And this is Bellagio, and there's some fantastic fountain shows that go on there in that great big lake over there. On the other side of we see Caesar's Palace and Pink Flamingo. And looking back towards the Mirage, Treasure Island. So after going to Las Vegas that night, after I flew in, I then headed down to Flagstaff for the remainder of the Feast of Tabernacles to catch up with Tiffany. Even though we'd broken up, I had pre-booked all this, so I got to spend a little bit more time with her and the rest of the people there at this particular site, which was a Fred Coulter Feast of Tabernacles, and some friends I made there while I was there in Flagstaff. And here is the feast hall for the Fred Coulter Christian Biblical Church of God feast site at Flagstaff. And then I flew after the feast to beautiful San Francisco. And now we're looking at a cable car going down one of the hilly streets there in San Francisco. And we're at San Francisco now, looking out towards the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a chilly Monday morning. And we're looking at San Francisco Bay from Fort Walton. And over there, it's a bit fast. Alcatraz. And looking back towards our hostel where we stayed overnight. And out in the distance over there is two spans of the Oakland Bay Bridge. How about that for a view? This is a beautiful city, San Francisco, particularly from this vantage point. We're on the northern side of the Golden Gate Bridge. There's this great scenic road
Gives you many vantage points of the bridge. A beautiful bay and harbour. Yeah, there towards. Looking back towards downtown. And we're standing right in front of the mighty Golden Gate Bridge. What an amazing piece of engineering. Helping create such a wonderful view. We've just come from San Francisco, way up north in the basic distance. Now looking out towards Santa Cruz in the very north. Swing around towards Monterey. Very opulent suburb, this particular, like a town I should say, not a suburb. Monterey. Lots of $1 million homes around here. At Lovers Point at the moment, Monterey, looking along Pacific Grove. The ocean along here is absolutely beautiful. Really lovely. We're going to go for a bit of a drive along a 17-mile drive around the Monterey Peninsula. Some golf courses and opulent homes along here. And the beautiful Californian coastline. Here's some photos of the California coast, the Big Sur coastline with Bixby Bridge visible there, and some nice greenery there. And we're on California's Highway 1, the place to get lost and see the beautiful California coast. Here's another shot of the Big Sur coastline as it's starting to get dark. I eventually made my way down to San Luis Obispo, where I spent the night there before continuing on my way down to Las Vegas. But the first place I went to was the beautiful town of Santa Barbara. We're now on Steams Wharf. We're at Santa Barbara. Beautiful mountains in the background there. This place really lives up to Southern California's reputation. Beautiful beaches and palm trees and Spanish villas. Far more than anything down near Los Angeles. Cars driving up to this wharf up here. Lots of pleasure craft out there on the waters. I saw this pretty cool beach towel with "Please Feed the Lions" showing here. And after that, made my way down to Los Angeles. And on the way to the airport, I snapped this shot of Randy's Donuts, the famous iconic big donut that you see in, I think it was Iron Man 2, where Nick Fury says to Iron Man, "Excuse me, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside the donut." And on my way back to Australia, I had a stopover in Auckland and New Zealand, and just show you a little bit of highlights from that city now. Welcome to the top of Auckland's Sky Tower, which gives us a panoramic 360-degree view of Auckland. See those three wires? Those wires out there. That's where adventurous people, unlike myself, plunge all the way down to the bottom. And now we're looking south of the city. Looking out towards the marina. Yachts. Is that cruising?
Go. He's quick. Let's see that again. Go. He's quick. Looking out there towards the Auckland Bridge. Now, one of the really cool features here at the Sky Tower, and Scary's features, is these glass panels where you can literally walk look straight down. It's 380 metres, or about 1,000 feet down to the pool. I'm kind of reminded of something from Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon, where they jumped into the pool from 7 stories high. Not today. It's a long way up. Wow. So that concludes my epic tour of America in 2006. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and thanks for watching.